Hello everyone, my name is Melinda Hart. You are watching Stamping with Hart. I am an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up, and today I am going to be creating these two cards with you. This is a follow-up from a live that I had done recently. I will link the video in the description for the original card that we made. And I had promised in that Facebook Live that I would follow up and have a filmed tutorial of these two cards. So that's exactly what we're gonna do today. So if you haven't already subscribed to my channel and you like crafting tutorials, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Give this video a like if you like these cards or if you're loving the new products from the new Stampin' Up catalog. This is the Color and Contour stamp set. We're also going to be using the dies. So here's a little diagram of what cuts out with all of the dies. So these are actually part of a bundle. Here we go. So that's what that looks like. I would love to hear from you. Leave me a comment. And if you're comfortable sharing, if you know somebody who might really love this tutorial or these cards, I would appreciate it if you shared it with them. That really helps my business. All right, so the first card that we are going to make is going to be the Thank You for Everything card. This features our new in color products. We're going to be using the polished pink cardstock. We're also going to be using the polished pink open weave ribbon. This is really beautiful ribbon. We're going to be using the polished pink Stampin' blends and the polished pink ink. So there are some other products that we're going to be adding into this, but you can see that certainly the star of the show, aside from the bundle, is the color that we're going to be using. Polished pink is my favorite of the 5 new in colors. Leave me a comment, let me know what your favorite in color is. My go-to card size, the one measurement that I use the most often, and I apologize for the lighting, the sun is setting where I live. I have all my professional lights on too, but I'm telling you, getting into a new routine is very interesting. So anyway, I like to use a standard card size for the majority of my cards, and this card is no exception. This card is going to be 8.5 by 5.5, and then scored at 4 1/4. We are also going to need some pieces of the basic white that we are going to run through our die cutting machine. So we're going to cut some pieces here for our basic white. This die is 4 inches. So I'm just going to cut something slightly larger than 4. This die is 3 1/4, so I'm going to go just above that. And then we're going to use this piece for our flowers for the project. I am going to keep our card in the frame here. So we're going to need 4 flowers. I'm going to use the Memento Tuxedo black ink for this, since we're going to be using alcohol markers to color the stamped images. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, if you're not into the alcohol markers or the Stampin' blends, there's actually a fill stamp for the outline. We're going to be using the outline flower and filling in with our blends. But if you don't like that, you could just use your fill stamp for the ink. So here is our outline. Okay, so we're gonna do some coloring before we do our die cutting. So I'm gonna grab my blends. And what I did with this card, you know, the whole concept of Stampin' Blends, you'll always get combos, a light and a dark of the same color. And here I just did light only on these two lighter flowers, and I did dark polished pink only on these two, just to show the difference of what that looks like. Now, a lot of people, when they use alcohol markers, they really want to get into the blending. So they want to have like the highlights and the lowlights and things like that, which you can absolutely do. But for the sake of copying this card and keeping it simple, I'm going to do 2 flowers in the light polished pink, and I'm going to do 2 flowers in the dark polished pink. And we're going to fill the centers with Daffodil Delight Light. All right, so now we're going to do some die cutting. Okay, so there's our first one. Cuts like butter. For our flowers, what we want to do to line this up, these 2 larger, the ones that go in the deepest on the die, are going to line up with those open-ended petals. Okay, so we're just going to see if we can get that lined up. And there we go. Okay, can you see the way that that lines up like that? So those are the points that we want to find on each one of the flowers, and then cut. Okay, so the other thing we're going to be die cutting is the outline for this stamp. Now, normally it would frame up this stamp, but I only want the stem for my flowers. So we're gonna cut 4 of these to go with our die cut flowers. If you're gonna do both cards at once, you can cut 7, and then you could also do your flowers at the same time too. So instead of stamping 4, stamp 7 flowers. You'll color 4 in pink and 3 in the fresh freesia. Okay, so this is Evening Evergreen cardstock. Okay, so we have our polished pink ink, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this stamp right here, and we're gonna create this splatter background, and we're gonna stamp it everywhere except for this corner where our sentiment's gonna go. So you can either stamp your sentiment first, or you can stamp all of your little your splatter pattern first. So why don't we just put down our thank you for everything right in the corner. Okay. And now we will start to add in that splatter pattern. Hopefully you can still see that over there just to have the reference. So I'm just going to ink this up. It is okay if you overlap some of it. I would try not to worry too much about making the pattern look perfect. I'm trying to stamp directly down and not rock. It's okay if you have some overlap. Okay. All right, I think that looks pretty good. All right, and so what we can do is we can get this onto our card base. I'm going to use my multi-purpose glue to put this down. All right, so then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our flowers together. And the way that we're going to do that is we are going to take these . Okay, so I'm going to free up this leaf here. And then we're just going to cut this at an angle. So right where that little notch is, if I can pick this up. Yeah, so right where this little notch is basically where we're going to cut. And that's just so that we have a piece here that we can adhere onto the back of our flower. The next thing that we're going to do is adhere our flowers and our ribbon, and then we'll add our embellishments to the centers of the flower. So for my flowers, they are popped up on dimensionals. So let's just turn these over. And before I take the backing off, I'm just going to do a little bit of arranging here. We just want it to look a little bit like a bouquet. So I did kind of 2 and 2. So the dark up and down, and then the lighter side by side. If you're doing all the same color flower, it won't matter. So I think that looks pretty good. I don't want to cover up my sentiment, so that's why I kind of had it like slightly at an angle like that. And then I'll just start to take off the backing of the flowers. Okay, and then I'm just going to secure it with a little bit of tear and tape. I usually just fold the tear and tape in half. Just pulling the backing off. I'm just going to fold it. The one thing, I just keep messing with the tails a little because I don't want that covering my sentiment. So I might trim that again, we'll see. Just pressing that on and make sure it's thin. Okay, and so with this one, our tails are down a little more, but I think that looks really cute. Okay, so you can kind of see it both ways, whether or not you want to tuck the tails in. Okay. And then our last thing will be to put the inside piece in the card here. So you could do the largest, you know, you could repeat this scallop rectangle on the inside too, but I thought I would use this one. And then, oh, well, I said my last thing. This is the last thing. So we are going to add some genial gems to the insides of the, well, I should say to the centers. We're going to add some jewels to the center of the flowers. As you can see, I'm running out. I love this look. And these are the gold ones. All right, so here we go. And that is card number 1. Now let's move to card number 2. For card number 2, we are going to be working on this. This is our Fresh Freesia card. Definitely had some fun with this. Same exact concept for the flowers. So I'm not going to redo those because it's exactly the same thing, just with a different color. You can see there's 2 light and then 1 darker flower. And we're going to be doing some scalloping with the Fresh Freesia cardstock. I am going to make some slight alterations to this card based on the live that I did. There should be a video posted of this gift box, or this gift bag, I should say. I wanted to have like a coordinating card. This is more of a concern card or a support card, where it says here for you now, and then on the inside it says in better days ahead, and there's a flower on the inside too. But with this one, to match this, we're going to change it up a little. We're going to change it to thank you for everything. So thank you for everything. You're absolutely amazing. So the concept is we would have the card with a little gift to go with it, a little thank you. But you could also keep it exactly the same. So if you need a care or support card, this is the one that is the care version. I'm also going to be adding just a little strip of the gingham behind our ribbon strips here. So let's go ahead and get started making this card, and then we'll make sure that our next card is the same exact design, just with a little, just a few changes. And just so that you know why I'm making the changes, when I designed that gift bag, I thought I really wanted to design a coordinating card for it in case anybody needed that. So let's go ahead and we'll start making this card. Okay, so we are going to be using the basic white cardstock for this card. The only difference is typically my card size is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. But this one is only 8. Basically, it is 8 by 5.5, and it is scored at 4 inches instead of 4 1/4. So 8 by 5.5 scored at 4. All right, I'm gonna be cutting these into 1.5 inch strips by 4. For our next piece, we're gonna be using the Scalloped contour dies. This is part of the color and contour bundle, like I mentioned. This is the piece that we are going to be using. And we're gonna trim an edge onto each one of the Fresh Freesia strips that we just cut. Okay. What had happened originally was when I had cut these to 1.5 and then trimmed in the scallop, I wasn't 100% sure of how much the scallop was going to take off, you know, with each of my pieces. I was basically just experimenting. So I decided I liked the layout of the 1 inch, you know, backed into each other like this. Okay. And as you can see, the scallops don't match up perfectly, but that was okay with me. Now, if you do want your scallops to match up perfectly, you could just cut longer strips and then trim them at the right spots so that they line up. For me, I didn't think, I really just wanted it to be playful, you know, just show off the scallops, but it didn't have to be perfectly aligned. So it's up to you, you know, how you want to do that. But I just wanted to point that out. But anyway, when I ended up trimming off that extra 1/2 inch, it ended up being, I didn't want to see these lines. Like I wanted to cover those up. So I thought, well, I'll take the scrap piece and I'll lay it over top. But what I discovered was the scrap piece, that 1/2 inch piece, is the same size as the ribbon. So I thought, how pretty would it be if I actually covered that in the ribbon? It just adds like a little more texture to the card. And that was how the little 1/2 inch strips ended up getting incorporated. So the only change that we're going to be making here is we're going to be adding in a strip of the gingham, the Fresh Freesia gingham paper. And the gingham paper is from the Pansy Petals designer series paper. So let me see if I have that chart in front of me. Here it is. So it's this piece here. We're going to be using the Fresh Freesia gingham, but you have other options there as well. I'm going to go to the 1 inch mark here. So we'll do 1 by 4. Okay, so that is the addition that we'll be making as opposed to this. We'll just have a little bit of that gingham tucked in there. And so now we can start to build out our card, and then we'll do our stamp sentiment. I keep working with like white on a white table, and I really shouldn't be doing that. So I'm going to put this paper down just so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I don't typically work with white card bases. Isn't that funny? But it felt very spring to me. So, all right, let's go ahead and we're going to start putting this together. So I'm just going to build out the layout first, and then we'll start adhering pieces. So I'm going to get these 2 pieces down. We'll get these 2 down. We're going to kind of go closer to the edge here. Give us some space in the middle for that middle strip and for our flowers. Okay, so from a spacing standpoint, we'll give our flowers some room. And we have like 1 up and then the other 2 like down, and we can angle them a little. That's what we did on the original card. Okay, so I'm just going to start putting this stuff down. All right, everybody. Sorry I had to fast forward that portion of the video, but we had some unexpected noise. Okay, so just finishing up this card, I went ahead and cut the smallest rectangle here of the scallop contour dies. And what I'm going to do, I want to use the thank you sentiment, but it's too big. It's too wide for this rectangle. So I just actually like masked off, and this is just like literally 2 pieces of scrap paper. I just masked off so that I'm only going to ink the thank you part, and I'm just going to stamp thank you on this, and then we'll finish up our card. So just so that you know why I'm doing that. Okay, just going to remove my pieces here. All right, so we have our thank you. Now, I could actually cut the stamp up to arrange it the way that I want, but just because of the way that the font is and everything, I really don't want to do that with this particular stamp. Or you could use a different sentiment if you would want to, but I really wanted to do the thank you. So if you're trying to figure out a way to fit the thank you in this rectangle, this is how you can do it. I'm actually going to pop this up onto dimensionals. So let me just do that. 3 should be good. Okay. Now normally I would finish. Oh, and on this sentiment I stamped it in Evening Evergreen, and with this one I stamped it in Fresh Freesia. So you guys let me know what you think. Which one did you like better? Do you like the one with the gingham strips better, or the one without? Or do you prefer the Evening Evergreen ink, or do you prefer the Fresh Freesia? I feel like I maybe should have used the Evening Evergreen, but it's okay. I mean, this is just a way to check out the different looks. It'll match better to the gift bag this way. Okay, so normally I would add in the genial gems here, but I am almost out. So I don't have enough to do the clusters that I did everywhere. I usually would do like 3 in the center. So I could either just do 1 in each of the centers, or I could add a different type of embellishment here. We could either do ribbon, or I could do my in color jewels. So let me grab those real quick. I have a few different embellishment options here. So these are the in color jewels. How beautiful are they? We could do these on like either side of the thank you. That would be pretty. I have these are silver and clear epoxy dots, and I don't think that quite goes with this project. And then I also have these loose flower flourishes, which also have this fresh freesia look to them, and I could add those. So let's just see. They have big ones and small ones, so I could do the fresh freesia gem, or I could do the flower. That's what the baby flower looks like, and this is what the big flower looks like. That's cute. Let me see. I think I'm just going to keep it simple and go with I lost a flower in my card. Okay, so I'm leaning towards the in color gem. I'm going to try one more thing. Let me just check out the ribbon. And here it is with some ribbon. And I honestly think I like the ribbon the best. So let's just trim this off. And we're just going to add our ribbon right above our sentiment. Let me just take a look at that. I feel like it ties it in a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of my tear and tape, and we'll just add on the finishing touch. Just folding it in half. I always hide it behind the knot. I'm going to put it right over this middle stem here. And I'm just going to trim this off a little. All right, and there's our card. Because we have white on the inside, you could either cut a piece and add it if you want. You don't have to. You can add in your sentiment. And then this is our coordinating, let me get that out of the way. That's our coordinating set. And then here is the difference between the original card and this version. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next one, and I will see you next time.